Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today, listeners, we have a digital marketing news episode for you.
So we haven't done one of these in a while. We get very distracted by ChatGPT and all those kind of great things as well. But there's lots of other stuff going on, so worth speaking about some of these. Now, the brilliant starting to this is that the way we record the podcast is that we get together beforehand, we do some research, and we create this coggle, which is basically a little brainstorm diagram, and we can spider things off and create bullet points, and we work our way through the bullet points.
So if you've ever wondered what we're looking at on our laptops?
That's what we're looking through, some bullet points, okay? We'll flash one up with this as well. The first one is a story about Apple mail privacy protection, okay? And I won't go into the details of the story, but we just re-recorded this because we were doing it, and you could see Kieran looking slightly concerned. And he'd gone off, and he'd Googled it and found out that the news story didn't actually exist. Okay? Why is that? Because Kieran yesterday was telling me how great Bard was it using Bard and saying it's great, and if I want to answer it to a problem, I'll get it. And he said, give me some digital marketing news. And it made a story up.
It did make a story up. Well, it appears to have made a story up.
It might not have done. We need to do some deeper fact checking.
Well, it's just like it crops up in the coggle. You know how these things work? Like you're under time pressures. We were working quite fast and furiously, working through lots of things. And actually that had just gone into the plan. But seeing it there, I'm like, we never fact checked that one. Let me just have a little quick look. It's like,
so I think that's a very interesting lesson in there. Either about one, don't listen to Kieran. Two,
this is always a good idea.
Two, you shouldn't listen to anything we say because we're not even fact checking it. Don't listen to that. Or three, if you're using AI tools for this kind of stuff, be really careful.
Yeah,
I'd go for option three, please.
Yeah,
okay. Maybe option one as well. But yeah, it's interesting. So let's move on. The one I mentioned in a previous episode that I wanted to come to first was this multi-channel mix declining. Okay. So this looked at a load of different sectors, and it went through and basically said how many different channels are each of these sectors using. So if it's like beauty, how many channels they use on average to engage with the audience. And across everyone, it had declined. Now, I was kind of surprised by that, first of all, because there's been so much fragmentation in social media. There are so many more channels available to us. Are we on Threads and X and Instagram and wherever it might be? But we're using less channels. And I said that to you and you went, yeah, of course. That your kind of gut reaction. So explain your logical thinking.
I just think that people are looking much more at the data now than they used to.
Okay.
Like people in the initial rush and flurry of heady days of early digital marketing.
Yep.
You know, the message was everybody needs to be on all these channels because they're all amazing. But I think the way that we measure things has gotten a lot better than it used to be. Like I think people just used to blindly head off and do stuff with no accountability. And I think most businesses have matured way beyond that now. Actually, there has to be accountability for that. And therefore, people are looking at the results that they're driving and what's driving the bottom line. And there's always the branding argument. But I think that's holding less and less sway as we get more and more kind of into our digital journeys. And actually people are going, do you know what? These are the channels that are actually putting meat on the table. And that's what we need to focus on.
But I think there's also a risk of having your reliance on less channels because you don't know what's going to happen.
Well. Yeah,
especially if, you've got your own channels, but stuff like social media, which is constantly changing, the more you narrow your funnel, the more risk there is there.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. If you're very reliant on a handful of channels, it can get risky from that point of view. At least there's a few. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit against your point, Kieran. Was that you can measure everything.
No, you
just said. Well, you just said you can measure things a lot better. Measurement has got a lot better.
Definitely never would say you can measure everything.
I know, because that's what you never say.
That is ridiculous. There's very little actually you can measure.
Well, that was more to my point.
Kieran's been triggered now.
Yeah, right. Just a bit. I think right. That we're relying on a couple of measures and saying, well, because of that, I'm just going to use these channels. Right? But that's risky because you don't know how the other channels are interacting with one another. Unless you've got a really good dashboard and you're measuring all sorts of different things and you're sample surveying, it's really hard to know that is actually the case.
You definitely get a good gut feel. If you're looking at numbers every week, looking at what you do, and looking at what's changed every week, you get a very good idea of which strings bring home the bacon.
Yeah.
That's what we're all doing when we look at those dashboards and those reports. That's why we have them. That's why we put so much time and effort into setting them up and doing them.
I'm really guilty of the whole keeping on using a channel though it's not working thing. And I beat myself over this all the time. It's like,
In
well, let's
denial
just
a lot
keep
of the
doing
time.
it.
Yeah.
Let's keep doing it because
Yeah.
we're doing it anyway, and it's not
Yeah.
much effort, and
Yeah.
it's achieving nothing.
Yeah.
So there is a bit of that in me. It's that lack of risk thing sometimes.
But
That
see,
you don't
this
want
is
to
a
not
big,
do it.
It's a big step on from just do everything and no
Do
accountability.
you know what my excuse though is?
Yeah, go on.
I go, well, I'm training. I'm doing the podcast. I need to show the stats that it doesn't work. I need to keep doing it because it gives me the stats to back it up. Yeah, I think that it's interesting. It's reflective of what we're talking about. I know that some channels will make us money, and some it's very hard to prove the contribution. The Rand Fishkin argument it would generally be you can't measure anything, like you kind of said as well. And actually, a lot of the stuff that you are doing that's working, you're not even aware of. So there is a risk.
Yeah, but this is a lot less of a risk than when we never measured anything and just did
Yeah.
stuff on gut feel, where we spent the budget last year, and that's to this point. You look at the modern measurement systems that we've got, and things like GA4, fantastic. Okay, you've got two things in GA4 that I think are real game changers for business intelligence. One of them is the smart attribution, right, which is looking at a whole variety of different user signals to work out, okay, which channel most influenced this user for your organization, right? So the way that's technically working is applying a different algorithm to every business based on
the
what's happened
data-driven
before.
attribution
The
model.
data-driven attribution model. And what I love about that is you no longer have to have these silly arguments about different attribution models.
That
Obviously,
was-
look at first click,
yeah.
last click.
Do you know, I should just
Time
explain
decay,
this, right?
yeah.
When I first started getting into digital marketing and I discovered attribution modeling, and a lot of people might not be aware because they've got rid of a lot of these models in the new version of GA4. You selected attribution model and then you arbitrarily selected which model, which was like linear. And I was like linear, like give everything the same weighting. At least I knew it was part of the journey.
Yeah.
Right? So each step in the journey was counted. Then you had time decay. The thing you did last was the most important.
Yeah.
Then you had my first one was first and last. The first thing you did, the last thing, stuff in the middle. Don't really care about that. And then you had the opposite of time decay. The first thing you did was most important. The thing you did last doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And it was completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
And even Google are guilty of this now. It's like, do you want to look at all channels or does Google page channels? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't want to do that.
But here's the thing: most organisations would pick the attribution model that made the person in charge look the best.
Of course. Well, that was my problem.
So-
And it was
so
like, you
very
could prove
often-
anything. You could prove
Yeah,
anything.
you could. And very often they'd pick, dependent on which channels they've been investing in, that would be the channel. And I saw that all the time. People picking. I worked with one organisation that on a 2-3 monthly basis would change the attribution
model.
because it made them look better. And
But also
do you know what's
no one knew.
interesting? They went out of business summer of
there you
last
go.
year, right? So this is not the way to.
But this
to
is
go.
the danger of reporting, right? Where you go, this uses attribution.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, what's
Yeah.
that? It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. And it's like this, the other kind of thing of that is like this is a particular model or framework that we're using. It's very good. And then my favorite is this is programmatic. It's another magic word. And it's just like, you could use a programmatic platform to target people in the world. That would still be technically programmatic advertising.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it is much better now. The data-driven model
It's
is
funny,
good.
isn't it? If I was to tell you this flapjack was made by an excellent algorithm, would that flapjack taste better? Because actually, all an algorithm is a recipe.
Yeah.
Right, so actually, every flapjack is made by an
Yeah,
algorithm.
but you said it was an excellent algorithm, so I would trust your algorithm.
Oh, well, yeah.
Thought we
But
got
then if
supposed
I
to
said
trust
it,
Kieran.
if I said it was an
yeah, that's right,
excellent
that's right. I
recipe,
forgot.
would you trust that more? I don't know. I think there's lots of bias in there.
I trust his cooking. It's just his digital marketing sometimes.
It's a bit shaky. The other thing in GA4, which I think is a massive game changer, is they've given us user scope, which is
Yeah,
and this
that's
is
a great
why
point.
that smart attribution works so well, which is the ability to look at a user's journey across multiple channels and work out how they've been influenced depending on what they did. So I think we are in a much better space to have the systems measure in much more effective ways. And I guess there's an element of me just blindly trusting that, largely because people I hugely respect in the analytics space have tested it out and gone, do you know what? It's actually not that biased. Like we haven't seen any evidence that it overly invests in giving, for example,
No.
Google Ads the benefit.
Google don't tend
No,
to do
I
that
don't
kind
think
of stuff,
so.
don't they?
No.
I mean, can I do something that I am concerned about? Though?
Yeah, go on.
I've been promoting a lot about Performance Max campaigns.
Yeah.
So Performance Max campaigns being the new types of campaigns in Google Ads that you set your objective analytics.
It's a bidding strategy, isn't it?
Yeah,
largely?
and it basically allows you to. It will mix up different images, different logos, different videos, different headings, different descriptions. Mix them up, use machine learning, and work out which one works the best. And it does tend to work better. However, I have a concern. Hopefully, I'll disprove or prove this over the coming weeks. But I think there's a bit of cannibalization going on,
Mhm.
and it's a really tricky one. You run one of these Performance Max campaigns, and it will do ads across YouTube, Google search results, display advertising, all these different places. I keep seeing things. Our search digital marketing toolkit will be number one in Google, and we've also got an ad showing up. And what we've done, and there's a settings thing here, there's an expanded thing. So it will basically go through, you've given all these assets. Do you want us to take more assets and keep expanding it? And it's actually working out that actually doing a digital marketing toolkit ad would be a really good idea. Now, I never would have paid for a pay-per-click ad for something that was so high up the funnel, like the toolkit. But now I find you go to search results and I'm in the organic and I'm in the paid and I'm paying for those clicks. And then when I get my reporting within analytics, it just says
Cross network.
cross network.
Cross network.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So the whole piece of basically saying, I'm not going to tell if it's paid search. I'm not going to tell if it was YouTube. So that kind of cross-platform thing could basically be, this is all paid search, and now you're getting loads of results from paid search. Yeah, but maybe I was getting them from organic search before, and all that's happened is I've cannibalized some of my own traffic, but it's converting really well. So it's like, okay, I'm less
Frustrating.
sure.
Yeah, that is frustrating because it's one less thing that you can.
One less level of
measure.
detail.
Yeah, it is. But increasingly, what you see is these algorithms are working at such a degree of sophistication.
Mm.
And it's not. We've gone way past one person seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
As what I see is different to what you see based on our previous performance on those networks.
And this is the other argument. Is it because I keep searching digital marketing toolkit? It's serving me a paid ad that says digital marketing toolkit.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? There is an unknown element to this.
Yeah.
And actually, do you know the way to work it out, which is I've just been thinking about, is the fact that if I run this and I'm spending the money, but I'm not getting incremental sales, it's just cannibalization. If I'm getting incremental sales, it's actually improving sales. Now, the problem with that is there will be other variables going on in the background. So we've got a million different campaigns going on as well. So it's very hard to untangle what's caused what. If I had to give you a gut feeling, I'd say that actually these campaigns are working really well.
I think they're preparing for the end of the third-party cookie.
Well, they are. I mean, they've literally come out. As of January, they start to remove them from Chrome.
So, muddy the waters a little bit so you can't see quite the effect potentially that would have.
Yeah.
Would be my argument.
But they haven't got third-party cookie data, therefore they're relying on AI data to do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to get rid of third-party cookies immediately. You train the AI on that data, and then you don't need the data anymore.
Just saying, you could lump everything all into one big blob of a campaign, so you can't really see what's happening, and then that doesn't let marketers see the potential 15-20% drop.
But let's go back a few years, and you go back and you used to be able to click onto organic search, and it would give you all of the phrases, however niche they were. And they went, no, you can't get that anymore. You need to go to Search Console, and it will only give you up to like 3 or 4 word phrases. You don't get the niche stuff as well. So again, I mean, Google have got form for doing this and not giving you that level of detail, so you can't reverse engineer how Google works and so on as well. So
big keyword tool.
Yeah. It's very good as well.
Hide data.
Right then,
I don't know. Because it's a secret.
Okay.
Secret source.
Only 150,000 people are going to hear it now. Okay. Okay. Next one. This might sound really obvious, but I think there's something important in this. Again, all the references for these will be in the show notes. Consumers are 5 times more likely to view advertising within non-premium content as low quality. Right. So you see some ads for a product or service. The content that's around it is not great. Therefore, you think that is a low quality product or service. Okay. That would make sense because we would always try and advertise against the best stuff. But I also think this race to the bottom of AI generated content and of just pumping stuff out, in a way, those of us that are making an effort to create great quality content, this demonstrates the point that the difference between the two in people's perceptions is massive. Mm. What you could argue is, do people know the difference between great quality content and low quality? I would say they do. And it's quite easy to put stuff out of AI, whereas when you start reading between the lines, it's not necessarily great until you've really got into it.
This is my point entirely, though. Like, don't waste my time as a
right.
consumer. Like, because it's the most valuable commodity that I have. And this tsunami of fairly lackluster content that's coming out,
which has been going on forever, right? And it's got worse.
And it has definitely got worse. Like, the way to win against this at the moment, the strategy is to produce excellent content that's got expert opinion. It hasn't just been like churned out from the most obvious things that a large language model can like pick out and learn.
There's a thing that we mentioned, which reflects back to Google's the experience authoritativeness and trust thing.
Mm.
And that was show me, don't tell me.
Mm.
Okay. And I think this is increasingly a thing as well that I've
Mhm.
seen work, which is that if I write a report telling you how to do keyword research,
Mhm.
that's okay, that's useful. Okay. But if I say, here is me doing the keyword research, this is the process I go through, these are the results I get, and this is how I've applied it, that applied knowledge gives you that expertise and trustworthiness, but also it tends to work better online to some extent as well, because I'm not trying to tell you something, I'm trying to show you how I've done it myself. And I think if you look at videos that work, if I show you a chart of stuff going up, you're like, oh, how did they do that? And I've had a couple of pitches from SEO companies recently, and what they've done really well is for every client they've got, they show you their website traffic reports.
Mm.
Now, I'm not silly because I know that doesn't show me the timescale. I can't see that. I can't necessarily see what else they were doing at the same time. But it is an indicator to me, okay, they are doing a good job. If they've got 99 of these charts all going upwards, that's pretty indicative to me as well. So I think that show me, don't tell me is quite an important way to start thinking about things.
It's,
It can
it's
help.
the best way under the consumer's protection ring.
Yeah,
if you
right.
Like everybody has this kind of shield against the onslaught. But actually, if you show me rather than tell me, and that's the problem as marketers. We're not really trusted voices. Well, you would say that you're trying to sell me a product or
Yeah,
a
of course.
service. Whereas, and this is it's the massive opportunity, I think, for every business. Leverage on your existing customers more. And this is where, for me, a lot of social media goes wrong. We're too obsessed with, honing our social media content to pull in like new, fresh customers for the business. Whereas actually, what are we doing on social media that speaks to our existing customers? There's a million things that we could do that would massively help and remind existing customers why they love using our particular service so much. It's pretty special, right? That they've chosen you of all the other training providers to provide them with their training. That's a huge achievement, right? But actually, in terms of social media, what are we pushing out there that reminds them? Because if we're not doing that, every other hairy herbert out there is. Because they're new meat to the grist for every other training company. And here's the thing: when you do that, very often they then speak up. They'll share that. Actually, yeah, no, this is excellent, and actually, this service or this product, I absolutely do love it. Now, when they say it, that easily has 5 times more impact than when somebody like me says it.
Is that a Daniel stat?
I just plucked a figure out of the air. Yeah,
that's what a Daniel stat is.
Yeah.
But this whole sort of show me, don't tell me thing is really interesting because, we talk about it within Google, but you can apply it to anything. And if you think of the successes from TikTok as a search engine, especially, people want to be shown because
show me the recipe, show me how to look after the plant, show me how whatever that thing is. Yeah, absolutely, that's it. And I do think that's an authenticity to that lends itself to social media. It's pretty important as well. Okay, I touched on to SEO there. I just want to mention something related to SEO, and there's a bit of a debate to be had here. So, core web vitals, which are a load of metrics that Google will score you on in Google Search Console, and they'll show you this in other places as well. They'll basically say, these are some technical metrics that will impact the user experience, and you should get these right. What they don't say is these will directly impact your search rankings. Now, it's quite easy to say, okay, it's not that you get 100% on these and you will get better search rankings, but it is certain to say, I would say that if you get a better user experience, which these will lead to, then you probably will get better search rankings. There's those signals. And there's this discussion that goes on in the SEO world where someone will go, links are really important. And people go, you're so, you know nothing about SEO. And people at SEO love to mock other people for not understanding it as fully as them when no one has the actual data from Google, because Google won't tell you that stuff. Okay, so it's all inference. Like, oh, on these 5 websites it worked. That doesn't mean the entire algorithm's working that way. And this pylon, getting quite heated about this. This pylon in the SEO world, someone will say something, and
I know considerably more about SEO than you.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll sneer,
and I will prove it to you.
Yeah, it's awful, right? So
I don't know why they all have that voice.
No,
it's in my
peculiar.
head.
It's peculiar. So what's interesting is these might not have that direct impact, but they will have a knock-on impact. And they're definitely things that you should focus on, because what you've got is the ones we're probably familiar with is LCP, largest contentful paint. Contentful. When did that become a word, right? When did Google say, okay, it's a word?
It's Google, they can do it.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. I'll Google it. Yes, it already existed. It's basically about how long does a page take to load, in a very simple terms. People also pile on
Or
for
a piece of content on the page.
Exactly. Take that, right? First input delay. How long is it before the page is loaded? You can actually start to click on stuff and navigate to where you want to go to. Cumulative layout shift, CLS, is how much does stuff shift around once it's loaded. Never good. You go to click something and an ad moves underneath it. That's why it's kind of hated. Okay. Or you haven't put image sizes in and the page shifts and all that kind of stuff. They're adding a new one. So what they're basically doing is they'll have new measures that they bring in and they kind of test them and they decide, do they graduate to be part of this Core Web Vitals or do they not? One that's coming in is INP, because we haven't got enough 3-letter acronyms. Yeah. So let's throw some more in there. This one is even less self-explanatory, which is interaction to next paint. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, right. If I tell you that, it's quite hard to work out what it even means. It's a metric. This is from the Google website. A metric that assesses a page overall responsiveness to user interactions by observing the time that it takes the page to respond to all click, tap, and keyboard interactions that occur throughout the lifespan of the user's visit to the page. So it's not saying it's not how quickly can you do the first click, but generally how quickly does it respond to you clicking on things. If it takes a long time, it's not great. Can I just say, Google, you need to get out more.
But so this will replace first input delay? No, apparently they're having both at the moment. And it might well do replace it, but there's going to be a period of time where it says in March 2024. That's when is it switching over? It will replace first input delay. There you go. I stand corrected. So I think at the moment you've got both and then it will replace it at that point, which makes sense because it's not just the first input, it's the longer term, which is good. What I would say with these is you can obsess on these and you can spend a lot of time on them, and you're not necessarily going to see this huge leap in search rankings, but it is for a much better user experience. We've gone through now and improved all of ours with our website rebuild, and I think you've got the page speed insights, which gives you some metrics about page speed, including these. And we're I think 100 on desktop, 100%, and 70-something% on mobile now. And I want to push the mobile up a little bit more. The interesting thing is what's slowing us down. So that was the main problem we had was you've got too much CSS and JavaScript. Yeah. What is it that's I was like, we're going to sort this out and get onto Brad, our developer, and he's going to fix whatever bad thing that he's done. Yeah. Not that Brad doesn't think bad. And actually, no, it's actually Google Tag Manager, amongst other things that are slowing things down. HubSpot. So there's some challenges around the HubSpot code and that. But some of the Google platforms are the things that are doing it as well. So you can go so far with this. Mm. And there's all sorts of clever server-side stuff that you can potentially, if you really want to obsess on this as well. But I just want to this point of Google comes out and says, here's a metric. It doesn't mean there's a direct correlation between that metric and your search rankings. But there's a trend behind it is the way I would think about it. And you're moving lots of different things and trying to improve them.
What you can't do, when they first brought out these metrics, there was a lot of belief that, fix that and you will win. Yep. And I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. It's definitely worth attending and fixing to them. But I don't think they have the dramatic change that you'd expect. There's a similar thing when they did the whole push for AMP, right? And everybody was racing to get AMP.
Accelerated mobile pages.
Yeah.
Another 3-letter acronym stuck in my mind. Never get rid of.
I think for a short term, some of the very early adopters had an advantage within the search engine result pages, but it didn't last that long. And it's a shame because actually people race for these things, put a load of budget and effort into it and don't get necessarily the return.
So I'll go back to an old story then, because John Henshaw at the time came out and said, why are we doing that? We should just be building fast web pages. Now he's changed his mind now, I think. He may have changed back again.
We want slow web pages?
No. He said AMP wasn't actually such a terrible thing. Yeah. But that's the point. It's yes, you go, well, I'm going to try and get these Core Web Vitals right. Yes, you should have responsive, fast loading, efficient web pages. So there's a theme there. What happens is that you tell people fast web pages are a good thing, and they look at the website and go, well, it's a bit slow, but it's a bit slow. But and then if you put a metric against it, it's like, oh, okay, well, we better do something about this. So it helps. I just wanted to come back to something we've been speaking about: Performance Max campaigns. What tended to happen at the beginning, you launched them, and they would take quite a while to kind of get going because the AI algorithm, the machine learning behind it, needed to do some testing before it could really start to get traction. They've now got search themes. Search themes is you can go in and say, this is roughly the area that I'm pointing at. Like you give them a category or a network. What's fascinating to me is that's basically just going back to what we had before. Like, what are the people interested in? They're interested in digital marketing training. Right, I'll point in that direction and then they'll iterate as well. So you have got the ability to give it a signal. There was something in there called user signals that you could add anyway. But it was a bit more complicated to do. So look out for that. If you do a Performance Max campaign, you've got search themes.
The themes are quite broad, though.
They are. This is it. It's like It's like go north rather than going south. I think that's the thing. It's like pointing in a loose direction.
We're being prepped. We're being prepped for the turn off of the third party.
So we're just going to be used to this kind of stuff and trusting what's happening.
But also, as an organisation, as a responsible organisation, they need to get enough data in to test these things out, and they will improve them. One would hope over time, but you've got to start somewhere, right? So
that's it. Yeah. Lots changing as ever. I just wanted to bring this back. The Digital Marketing Skills Benchmark, we've just released, or a little while ago now, we released the new edition of the report. What it shows us is skills have improved slightly. They're nowhere near where they should be still. We all know this. It's a kind of challenge. We also measured confidence for the first time. Doesn't paint a particularly pretty picture between the gap between confidence and reality of skills in a lot of cases. Benchmark your own skills. Be honest with yourself. Benchmark your team skills, not from a performance management point of view, but to help them to kind of learn as well. And what we've now done is that you can benchmark yourself or your team for free, but the whole thing's automated. So you go in as a team, you say, right, set this page up. It will give you a password. It will then give you a link you can share with all your team. They go in, benchmark, and then we can share the results with you at that point as well. So targetinternet.com/benchmark. Go and benchmark yourself. Make sure you're staying up to date with all of this stuff. As ever, if there's particular things you want us to talk about on the podcast, just let us know. targetinternet.com/podcast. And that is where we share all of the notes and everything we've spoken about today. As ever, thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.